Yo, what's up everyone? My name is Andrew Warren, and if you enjoy videos like these, especially stock portfolio update videos, portfolio reviews, and me simply talking about the moves that I'm making in the market, please make sure to drop a like on the video, smash that like button. It really does help me out and it helps these videos get discovered more. But jumping right into today's topic, I'm going to be covering my full portfolio that I own, showcasing all of the stocks that I own and my current gains or losses for the day. So far, nothing that I own took a loss today, so that's awesome. And in addition to all of this, at the end of this video, I'm going to be discussing some stocks that I'm looking at potentially purchasing, or just simply some that I am thinking about, not necessarily like planning on purchasing, just taking a look at, browsing right now and thinking about whether it's worth my time. And I also may be readjusting a notable amount of my stock portfolio, and I'll get right into that towards the end of this video. But first off, we have to talk about the stock market today, how it has performed, and as you can see, it has been pretty much non-stop consistency today. This is what I consider, and I said this in my video I think last week. I think we had a day like this on Friday or Thursday, and I said the same thing basically, that when you have a day that is this consistent throughout the whole day, it starts high, it ends high, and then we have like that general baseline trend that goes across perfectly in the middle, then that shows that you had a consistent stock market day. And that is one of the best days that you can get, in my opinion, because it's not like it's starting out with volatility at the bottom and then by the end of the day maybe making it up to the top right, and then doing the opposite, starting high and ending low. So I would much rather have a consistent day like this than so much volatility that we've seen recently as well. And one thing that I mentioned last week, I believe as well, was sort of just like an inference, something that I was assuming with the market. It's definitely not a fact, but I have seen consistency because I was accurate with it last week. But I said basically when you have a consistent day like this, usually if I see a day like this, then I'm predicting the next day will at least start out green, because people are going to be remaining a little bit bullish and maybe more positive, because you don't see this consistency extremely often in the stock market. A lot of the times, like I said, it starts high, ends low, starts low, ends high, or it's simply just super volatile. But when you see a line like this, almost similar to just a flat line across the market, when you see this sort of line, especially in the green, in the positive, then as an investor, I would assume, and it happens with me as well, it makes you more confident for the next day. And that's one of the main reasons why I think it will at least start out green tomorrow. And like I always say, I could completely be wrong. This is just one of those things where I don't mind to openly guess it in front of people, just because it's fun to guess around. Even if you're wrong, sometimes you can be correct as well. But I feel like when investors like myself see a line like this of total consistency for today, then you start having a more positive outlook on the future of the market, especially considering that we've seen multiple days like this recently, not just today, but last week as well. And I really just think that it helps kind of like restore faith in the future of the stock market. So at least that's why I think it won't start out red tomorrow. I think it will start out green, or maybe just a tiny bit in the red, and then spike up to the green for most of the beginning part of the day. However, it could be likely that it starts out green tomorrow, like I said, but then ends the day in the red. That actually happened last week, where people sort of have confidence at the beginning, but towards the end of the day, they kind of lose it a little bit, and some people panic sell. And you have to just think about all of the psychological perspectives about the market, like how we just guessed what other people would do just then. But then you also have to think that there's other investors out there that are thinking even one step further than me, that are thinking about me, thinking about them, thinking about the market, and then they make all of their decisions based on that as well. So it's a lot of just assumption and guessing, and that is why I just like to buy high quality long-term stocks. I simply have a large holding in pretty much 4 stocks only in Robinhood. That's all you can see. I only own 4 main stocks, and it just adds a lot of simplicity to the everyday things that you see going on within the stock market. Like, for example, even recently when we had this huge downturn and then obviously the upturn afterwards, in the long-term perspective, this is simply just noise or a road bump that I'm not even going to recognize when I'm looking at it 40 years later and realizing that the best thing that I did was simply just getting in the market at the time that I did, rather than at what price did I enter the market for a certain stock or something like that. I think sometimes the most important thing that you can do is simply just begin investing. The longer you're in the market, the more you learn about the market, and the more you learn how you can improve the stock picking and change your perspective. perspective. So basically with my 4 stocks right here, I don't have to worry about this everyday nonsense that we're talking about. I mean, I do a daily portfolio update and just like a stock news type video every day, just because it's fun to do. I like to talk about the moves that the stock market made for that day. But in general, I don't pay too much attention to what is happening in the market currently because it doesn't really matter for me long term. As long as I'm seeing a general trend that says I'm making at least 10% on all of my stocks, which we're still working on for VOO, but for every other stock out there, and then we're working on Tesla as well. But I'm just aiming for at least a 10% gain every single year. I'm looking for that on every one of my stocks for a 12-month timeline. Like if I don't have 10% gains within the past 12 months, then I'll just simply pick a better stock or readjust my portfolio. Like for example, if the stock doesn't give me 10%, then I'm just going to heavily invest in one that is doing much better for me, like Microsoft. That's what I've been doing a lot recently. But in basic terms, what I'm saying is what we're seeing right now, whether it's going up and down, simply just beginning investing in a long-term high quality stock and just holding it for that long, that's pretty much the easiest way to invest as long as you make a good stock choice. And once you engage in that long-term perspective, you truly don't have to stress out about the daily market moves anymore. As long as you've done your research, then that means it will give you enough faith to have faith in your move in the market to where you don't have to stress about it every day. If you know how your investment is pretty much going to turn out by investing in a safe long-term investment, then you don't have to stress about that everyday noise or that everyday market move. So that's my perspective on things with this $77,000 portfolio. But just to discuss my thoughts about what I think will be occurring in the future, honestly, at this point, I'm just at that confusion point that people talk about. I mean, I know there's a chart that basically shows, you know, it goes up to like all-time highs, and then the recent crash we experienced, it bounces back up pretty much significantly like what we're seeing here. And then it says this is the confusion point, and then it goes down, like spikes down immediately. This is just like a chart on Wall Street Bets or something. And then it's showing like midway down, everyone is like hopeless and everything. And then finally we hit that bottom, and then it finally starts recovering again. So some people think that we are hitting like the confusion point where we had this rebound, and surprisingly this rebound is pretty much back to normal on what it was before the crash. And many people are thinking we are at like this hump or at this point where everyone is sort of confused on the market, and then we are at like right the edge. We're on thin ice. This is right before everything gets super bad. So right now there's the perspective that we either rebound and keep going up, or it has just rebounded significantly and the worst is yet to come within the next few weeks or next few months. So there's two sides to this. I'm honestly confused. I think that the ball is just in the air and that this thing can go in any direction. I mean, obviously, we even have the argument of what is actually happening with the Rona situation right now. You have tons of people like Elon Musk that says it's really not as big of a deal as people are acting. And then you have the other side as well that is saying we need to help protect other people. The whole goal of this is to not be selfish and try to protect the people at risk. So you have those two perspectives. And then depending on that, you also have the bulls and the bears within the stock market based on all of that information. So the information is sort of scrambled right now, and maybe that could be attributed as to why the stock market is making like unrealistic decisions or kind of being illogical compared to what it normally does. But honestly, like right now, as someone in like the financial realm, I feel like the stock market is one of the best ways to profit, especially at home during quarantine, doing basically nothing. The only way that you can really profit long term without doing much right now, the easiest way to do that is accessible to anyone over 18 is the stock market. So maybe all of this is just rising because people know this is one of the only ways to make money in the market right now and to make money in their current environment. So it kind of makes sense that the stock market is going up. You have unemployment and stimulus checks both stimulating the economy with people using that money. I know that they're saving it like at a surprisingly high rate. I remember seeing an article where it was saying that Americans are saving just as much money as they saved in the 1980s, in which those were the times of like really good savings rates compared to recently. So we're saving much more money. So the part of saving money has a negative effect on the economy, but we also are stimulating the economy as well with the stimulus checks and the unemployment like I mentioned. And then of course, just like I said, the stock market as well. It's one of the only ways to make money right now. So people are investing. It's possible to make money in this market. So in my opinion, I'm just going to say I have no idea where the market is going. No one really truly does. You can kind of guess and estimate what is going to happen, but it's too hard to do it consistently. No one can. But anyways, jumping into my portfolio, for those interested in this $77,000 portfolio, I own VOO, Microsoft, Apple, and Tesla stocks. So I can actually break this down differently as to where you can see my various equities in the stocks, For example, VOO is about a $32,000 investment. Microsoft is about a $21,000 investment. Apple is $13,400 invested, and Tesla is $10,600 invested into that stock. So as you can see, we have a pretty significant holding in every single one of these companies. A lot of the holdings are focused on VOO, and lately I've been putting a lot into Microsoft as well. So those contain my major holdings. About a little over 60% of my holdings are in Microsoft and VOO. And then of course you have the smaller investments like Apple and Tesla. Apple is probably going to be one that I will hold off for a while. I think it's already back to a super high price. Yeah, as you can see, Apple is $319. That's actually so crazy. I've already gained $1,400 since the rebound when I went into the negative. But just to go ahead and do a breakdown with VOO, like I said, this is my largest holding, and actually I can show how much money I've made to date on this, but we'll just go ahead and put it back to what it was at. But anyways, breaking down VOO, as I mentioned earlier, I own $32,000 in equity with an average cost of $290, and I own 117 shares of this stock. Today's return, we gained 1.61%, which is $506, and then in total we are just negative 6.04%, or around $2,000. This is one thing that I will be referencing at the end of this video in which I plan on doing some readjustments maybe if I can get this down to zero. But on to the next one, we have Microsoft. Today's gains were pretty solid for Microsoft. I got a nice 1.25% gain, or $257, and in total we have done super well with this stock just within the last 3 months. I think that's pretty much as long as I've held it, which is a 14.09% gain, or $2,587. And my average cost for this is $162.50. I own 113 shares, and it takes up 27% of my portfolio, so a pretty good amount. And then next up you have Apple, which is at a 1.94% gain for today, which is about $254. In total, we have gained 11.63%, which is about $1,400 for Apple. My average cost is $285, and that's actually a pretty high average cost, but the stock is just seemingly like skyrocketed recently. And for the portfolio diversity, it is 17.40%. And then finally up, we have Tesla, which is one of my favorite stocks to look at. Definitely my favorite one to research and all that stuff, but I still haven't gained the most with this one. I know Microsoft is my biggest gainer, but I absolutely love looking up news about Tesla stock. And as you can see right here, our today's return is 0.90%, or $94, and total return is 0.47%, which is about $50. And I own 13 shares, and it takes up 13.76% of my portfolio. And my average cost is $811.50. So I do have a pretty high average cost, I have to admit, and I realize that, but I think in the long term, Tesla is really going to be rewarding in terms of growth. And like I mentioned earlier, I was going to be mentioning some stocks that I've been looking at recently. Definitely one of those stocks, I'll go ahead and cover one of them for the end of this video. That is ARK Innovation. This is one that I've really been looking at recently. And if you just take a look at the past week's gains, it has done tremendously well. 11.60% just within the past week. Within the past month, it has already recovered. Actually, if you look at the past 3 months, it's already recovered from the crash, and it's 5.07% above what that all-time high was just previously before it right here on February 19th. And if you look at the past 5 years, 191% in gains. This is just one of those stocks that I think it qualifies in terms of like the growth every year. And I think recently, especially within the past year, towards the end of this past year, like upcoming with this middle and late 2020, I think the stock is going to do extremely well, especially with the popularity of like genomics and of course industrial innovation, which is what this ETF covers. And of course, ARK Investments is like a really high quality, well-known company that knows how to pick out the outliers that are good for revolutionizing industries and implementing innovation. And I know that they've always been big proponents of Tesla. They like Tesla, they support Tesla. And then of course the founder and CEO known as Catherine Wood, I would recommend checking out some of her videos on YouTube. I really believe in a lot of what I hear her saying, and I think that she's definitely a super smart person. So that's one of the big reasons why I like this ETF. For one thing, I take a look at the growth. That's like I always say in these videos. That's one of my biggest qualifications. I got to have at least 10% every year in growth. And then of course, I'm liking what I'm seeing, especially recently, especially on the past 1 year chart. And also, I simply just like this investment manager. I think that they have some good picks, and I definitely like the CEO as well. So those are just a few aspects of this stock. A lot of that does focus on the growth, I have to admit, especially after the low point right here. Like this is a huge gain. Went from minus 19.66% to plus 43%. So that is some crazy gains. So now that we covered one stock that I've been looking at a little bit lately, I want to talk about a move that I may be making in the future. And a lot of it just simply depends on if VOO eventually recovers to my initial investment. So if I can get this like just a tiny bit under 0%, or 0% or above, I'd even take like $100 loss maybe just to sell off a lot of this stock. Maybe sell off like $15,000 to $20,000 of VOO and simply just put it in another stock that I have faith in. For the most part, VOO was like my first selection as a stock because they always tell you you want to select an index fund, you want to select a high quality long-term stock, and VOO is pretty much kind of similar to an index fund and is pretty much the closest that you can get to that in Robinhood. It tracks some of the top 508 companies in the S&P 500, so it does a good job of sort of diversifying itself and evening out for you. But one thing that I realize is that when I choose a stock that I have faith in, that I think is going to make me more money than VOO, VOO is kind of that one that I choose because I know it's just the recommended safe stock. It's what people emphasize if you want to grow and build wealth long term. So that's why I have so much of a big holding in VOO with this massive amount of like 117 shares, because I want that diversification that people talk about. But I also go back and think about that saying where some people say that diversification is just like a guard for ignorance. It's just to help the investor not be ignorant, and it's supposed to like make up for their mistakes by just averaging everything out and playing the simple strategy and playing the simple way. So I have to admit, in the back of my mind, what I've been thinking about recently is just taking that $15,000 to $20,000 in VOO and simply putting it in Microsoft, which is a stock that I think can give me about a range of like 20 to 50% gains every single year, which 50% would be something that I would have to wait 5 years to get out of VOO if you just take into considerations it's 10% per year on average. So especially with me being 22 and being younger and having that higher risk tolerance where I can eventually recover my money if something does happen like a crash, then I'm sort of thinking about maybe taking advantage of bigger opportunities than just like VOO. Since it only gives me about 10% every year, I would love to put this into other stocks that I have like Tesla and Microsoft that I think will make me a lot more money than 10% every year. And then of course, if these stocks start to die down in the future, I can always readjust that. But I feel like I'm at an advantage where I'm so young right now. So if I can just get this to zero, just somewhere near zero where I don't have to take like a $500 or more loss on this, I'm definitely thinking about making this move and taking a percentage out of this and putting it into Microsoft. But only time will tell on that. Just because I'm mentioning it doesn't mean I'm going to do it. It's just something that I've been thinking about, just like how I've been looking at these stocks right here, like ARK Investments. It's just simply a thought. It doesn't mean it's set in stone or it's going to happen. Trust me, I'll let you know when I'm absolutely going to do something and when I've already done it. As you know, with my videos on the stocks that I've purchased recently, I like to keep you all up to date. But I hope you enjoyed this video. Please make sure to smash that like button if you did. And also, if you would like to begin investing, feel free to use my referral links for Robinhood and Webull down in the description below. I hope you all enjoyed the video, and I hope you have a fantastic rest of your week.